Welcome along to Tweet Street Scotland Occupied, home of the satirical satire. I'm Cinnamon Bridges, aka Peter. With me this evening, we've got two members of the Scottish Feminists. We've got Caroline McAllister and we've got Choc. Caroline, I'm going to come to you first and first say hello. Thank you very much for joining us. How are you doing?
Yeah, not bad, thanks. Thanks for inviting me.
Oh, you're very welcome, Caroline. I've said before that we need to get you on, but I know that whatever happens, people get busy doing whatever things and never quite manage it. So it's great to have you on. Thanks very much for coming on. And Choc, I'll come straight to you and say hello. Welcome along to Tweet Street. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm very good, thanks. And the same goes to yourself. Thanks very much for joining us. We've got another couple of members who want to remain in the background, and we're happy to do that. So hello to them. They're on the stream as well. The audience will only see them, hopefully. So it's just acknowledging that they're there. We'll come to the audience for some questions a wee bit later on. But first of all, I'm going to come to Caroline because I invited Caroline on. It was members, representatives of the Scottish Feminists. Just to ask, pretty much, why they formed, what they're doing, what they have done, what they are doing, and what we can look forward to for them in the future. So, Caroline, I'll come to you for that, and take your time.
Okay. Well, the Scottish Feminist Network grew out of a number of groups that have been operating sort of in the background for the last few years. And I'm sure you know that there's been a number of pieces of legislation that the Scottish Government are trying to, well, they've passed some of it, that are eroding women's rights. So there's the gender recognition reform, there's the hate crime bill, where men are far more protected than women in law. And there's the 50-50 representation of Women on Boards Act. That's probably not quite the right title, but it's roughly that. And you're probably aware that the Scottish Government decided that they would redefine what it meant to be a woman, an adult human female, to include anybody and everybody who said, I'm a woman. And For Women Scotland requested a judicial review, and they won that review on appeal. So there's been a lot of women quietly working in the background, little groups dotted around Scotland. And we decided that we would consolidate all the groups, or the small groups of women, and we started the Scottish Feminist Network. And since then, we've got over 1,000 members. We have, I think it's 30 groups throughout Scotland. And we are looking at women's issues and challenging some of what the government are doing. We're raising awareness. Part of our remit is to advocate on behalf of women, because there's a lot of policies out there that are actually harming women and girls. There's the erosion of women's rights. There's the erosion of our language. You know, we are no longer autonomous individuals with bodily autonomy. We are parts of anatomy. So I'm a cervix haver. Choc is a non-man. These are just some of the crass, inhumane terminology that's been introduced to describe women. So there's regular stalls throughout Scotland. We were one, indeed, Choc hosted one up in Arbroath, that's it, yeah, which was very well attended and was very well received by the locals. That was a few weeks ago. There's been various different events. We work in conjunction with other women's groups. So, for example, we work with Soul Sisters, we work with For Women Scotland, etc. And indeed, we were part of the protest at Polmont Prison. So we worked with Keep Prison Single Sex. And that was another very successful event, well attended. And then I think it was last March, there was the Forth Valley Feminists. They organised a women's festival in Alloa, and that was a full day. And that was a great success. I believe there was over 200 women attended. So that sort of gives you a flavour of what we do. We're not going to tell you what we're planning ahead because we get enough grief. You'll have seen last year at the For Women Scotland demonstration at Parliament that we had TRAs, MRAs, whatever you want to call them, demonstrating, and indeed there were some ugly scenes at that demonstration, which is pretty much replicated throughout the whole of the UK. Wherever women gather to discuss women's issues, the opposition turn up. We all saw the Black Pampers and down in England, but it's not just Let Women Speak, that campaign group that have been subjected and targeted. Women's Place UK, every time they've organised something, they've been harassed and intimidated, and events, they've tried to disrupt their events. And indeed, in the early days with For Women Scotland, you were going into some of these meetings and you were having to go through a group of people shouting abuse and all sorts at you. So that kind of encapsulates a little bit of what we do. I think it was important that Scottish Feminist Network sort of evolved out of these groups, because there was women all over the country. Some women were afraid to speak because they risk losing their jobs, they risk being targeted, being harassed and bullied. And as Elaine Miller said, when women get angry, we get organised and we get shit done. And that's kind of pretty much what we're doing. So I'll pass you over to Choc now.
Magic, see before you there, I just gave a wee mini cheer there when you said that, right? Yes, right. Because I support the message that you're trying to put out, and keep doing it. I keep doing it. I was at one of the events that you've done last year when you were doing a protest outside Parliament. I keep doing it, please, because you get shit done. Is that right? So, Choc, I'm going to come to you just to expand on that. What's your thoughts and your reason for getting involved as well?
Pretty much what Caroline said. Caroline will always say it much better than I possibly could. I think the groups are good insofar as it allows women who, for whatever reason, can't necessarily be as active as they would like to be out with social media. Whether it's because they work for the NHS or they're teachers, which, as we know, are so captured, it's unbelievable. And as much as we would all like to say we're warrior women, we have to eat. So, these groups are good because it allows women to become involved without risking their livelihoods. And also it allows women to know that they're not alone. What's been happening is apparent to so many people. And when you don't feel alone, it almost allows you to become much more not enthused, but it just means you're not feeling like you're screaming against the wind. What on earth is happening here? Is it just me that doesn't understand why my government aren't prepared to protect me? They're happy to throw me to the wolves. And when I say I genuinely have a concern about this, that my First Minister, who is a feminist to her fingertips, tells me that my concerns aren't valid, that's an issue. That really is an issue.
See, when I heard that at first, it's that, hold on, there's a misframing here. There's a something that's not been edited right, and it's edited to sound like that. And after I heard it, and I go, you couple of swear words. How dare you? And under the guise of being a feminist to her fingertips, as you say, the attacks that on every part of Scottish society, whether it be women, whether it be safeguarding in schools, whether it be the independence, this thing in my background and that, and like, I'm a Scottish independence supporter, right? And I've been so disheartened. I was always a Scottish independence supporter. I was never SNP, right? I was always Scottish independence. I lent them a vote. I agreed with the fact that they could get us there. But that aside, it's then dividing not just the yes movement, but the rest of Scotland, that they say that we need to convert the soft nods. What will you convert them? What, to the cult of Satanism? Is that where we're going? Is that what we're converting people to? Because that's how it feels. It feels as if there's some evil intentions, and it's mad. So, look, when the attacks on women started happening, and been very apparent, Marion Miller and others. And by the way, just to touch on something that Caroline said, not just in Scotland, England, Ireland, and Wales that the TRA has been putting pressure against women. It's the world over. There was an 80-year-old woman trying to protest about, again, people in changing rooms and stuff like that, and getting shouted down and physically manhandled and things like that. So it's the world over. But look, I just see evil intentions, because of some of the things that you kind of know for your dealings with the civil service, for government, and for the criminal sector, shall we say. And you start kind of going, wait a minute, like, I'm no Einstein, right? I'd never proclaim to be Einstein. But there's a couple of issues here that when you join the dots, it's like a barn door, and you go, right, well, wait a minute, is this the way they're trying to take us? Is this what's the motive behind this? And all I can see is, like, I go back to, oh well, if they shut the women up, then they've got easier access to the wains and everything else, and that's in my head. That's where we're at. That's where we're at. It's a danger. It's like, hold on, you've got all these. And look at some of the politicians and how they try and defend them, and how they try and get them off with things. Why? Look, we don't have to look too far back to the likes of Jimmy Savile. We don't have to look too far back to Barry Bennell, and how they get access to people. And then you've got the likes of Shona Robinson, saying that, no, you're mistaking them. No, they're fine. They've got that big stamp on their forehead when they're a danger to people. That's how we know. They don't disguise themselves. Look, it must be sickening, Caroline. You were in the NEC, the SNP. It must be sickening for people like yourself that for years have done everything to prevent shit like this.
It's actually incredulous that these people that are making serious decisions appear to have absolutely no insight whatsoever into safeguarding. They appear to have absolutely no insight into how predators operate, or why women need single-sex spaces. You know, we talk about dignity and privacy and safety, but quite often that's just paying lip service. You know, we've now got a legal male managing a women's refuge in Edinburgh. This legal male has said that the women's sector needs to cleanse themselves of bigotry. They've said about women that need that service, and women desperately need that service. You know, recovering from male sexual violence takes time, takes expertise, but you start with a safe environment. And all the best practice has, for donkey's years, has been same-sex practitioner. We know that's what will help women recover. But that's okay. They're there, they're promoting their political angle of things. And what's happening to the women? Where are the women going? Because we know that there are significant numbers of women now self-excluding from the women's sector, whether that's women's aid or rape crisis, because they feel that these professional feminists at the top of the tree have badly let them down. They've abandoned them, to be honest. And it's not just at the top of the tree, that's trickling down, and it's impacting at grassroots level. You know, in North Lanarkshire, there were 3 women's aid projects that lost their funding. because they stuck to their founding values and best practice, which is that women recover better in single-sex spaces. And they were punished for that. You know, it just is absolutely ludicrous that these people that don't appear to have any insight, any knowledge into how, not just how women recover and why they need these spaces, but into safeguarding, how predators operate, etc. That these people are in position of power to make decisions when they know bugger all, appear to know bugger all about it. And you know, Shona Robinson's that day in Parliament when she was announcing the travel of the bill through the Parliament, what she said was absolutely ridiculous. I cannot believe that a senior politician, a cabinet secretary, stood up in the Scottish Parliament and said that men don't guise themselves as other things to gain access. I know those aren't her exact words, but it's just, it beggars belief. And that's why I firmly believe that every elected representative, whether at council level, whether at the Scottish Parliament and Westminster, they should all be subjected to mandatory safeguarding training as soon as they're elected. That should be top of the tree, because if they did the safeguarding training and they understood and had insight into how predators operate and into the horrific lifelong damage often that children and women are left with to deal with, they might not be so quick to make these shitty decisions, because at the moment their judgment is seriously impaired, in my opinion.
I agree with that view that you've got, Caroline. It seems to be that the judgment is impaired, at least either that or it's a case of, well, it's no impaired and it's a deliberate attempt. So let's give them the benefit of the doubt and say that their judgment is severely impaired. Choc. Now, before we went live, your political affiliations have differed. Would it be fair to say that?
Yes, I was. Okay. I was a member of the SNP and was a huge SNP supporter running up to 2014. My social media was filled with, you know, let's go, let's get the SNP in. And then a couple of years ago, it kind of dawned on me that I don't actually think that's their main focus. But secondly, I'm not prepared to cede my rights for independence. Now, some people may be prepared to do that. That's absolutely fine, but I am not one of them. So I left the SNP and Alba came along and I thought, well, that's marvellous. And I had a few disagreements. So I am now completely politically homeless.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
And I don't know who I'm going to vote for. If there's an election tomorrow, the last election, I voted Alba number 2. I spoilt my ballot for the first paper. There's nobody in Scotland I can vote for.
Oh, it's mad how we've got to where we've got to for the position that we were in, and like well, it appears we've got like some independent supporters, right? Let's put it that way. Initially, right? And for 2014 to where we're at now, it's like, if you were to tell people in 2015 that after the way it took off, the crest of the wave that we were on, that in 7 years' time you're going to be told that there's an IndyRef, or in 8 years' time you're going to be told that there's an IndyRef next year that nobody's got to believe. And while you are waiting for that, women are going to be switched off it. Families are going to be kind of switched off it because they want to protect their wains. The only people that are going to be really on for it are the 0.02% of the people that have hijacked the SNP and that are taking over and that they want to make everything for. That's my assessment, and obviously that's no anything that we've agreed before to say. That's just me being facetious.
I don't even think that the SNP are necessarily appealing to them.
No.
Because if you look back at Nicola's broom cupboard
video,
please don't leave. But the problem is that no political party will ever do enough to make these people happy. So the SNP are throwing women's rights away, they're throwing safeguarding of kids away, but it's not going to be enough. It's never going to be enough.
Right.
So I genuinely don't understand why somebody somewhere said, do you know what we should do? I don't get it. I don't understand it, because it's not getting the votes. You know, we'll know that they've lost a fifth of their membership. And, you know, the suggestion in their accounts that was because of COVID, every single person who left because of COVID. I left the SNP, and I made my feelings about why I left very, very clear to Peter. And I know I'm not the only one. So if you genuinely want independence, what you have to do is unite the country. You have to unite the country where that's what, and the SNP are doing the opposite of that. They're creating factions where there were no factions before. And I don't know why. I don't understand it. They're creating, my country has become one where I can't speak as publicly as I want to about women's rights. Because if I do, and I do it on, for example, Twitter, I get called the most horrific things. I get sent pictures that would make your eyes pop out your head. We get threatened. That's not a country I want to live in. And I can't trust the SNP to run my country. And that's a problem.
I think you're alone. On you go, Caroline. On you go.
No, I was just going to say, I think that's a really valid point, and an important point that Choc has highlighted. When you have a high-profile, very successful MP, a member of the SNP, and she has consistently, over a number of years, received death threats, rape threats, all sorts of horrific threats, and the First Minister cannot utter one word of condemnation, then that sends a really chilling effect right across Scotland to women. It's basically saying that shut up and put up, or the attack dogs will be let loose and they will not be held back. You know, it really is staggering that, and Joanna Cherry's still subjected to this crap. Yeah. And people are still saying nothing. She put out a tweet a couple of weeks ago where I think I don't know if she'd just been at the police or she'd just been interviewed or whatever, but she'd received yet another threat.
Yep.
Now, the police seem to jump whenever somebody misgenders somebody or sticks a bloody sticker up. The police are around banging on women's doors, removing seditious reading materials. But when it comes to, you know, women, we've seen it online, we've seen death threats. You know, recently, J.K. Rowling, when she tweeted about Salman Rushdie, got a really barrage of horrible death threats, and Twitter said that they hadn't broken any rules.
Yeah.
And these people, you know, after Sturgeon's emergency broom cupboard broadcast, she was inviting back, she was begging, she wasn't inviting, she was begging some of the worst bullies in the party to return. Now, you look at the effect of that. It's no wonder that you've got Scottish Feminist Network, you've got For Women Scotland, you've got Soul Sisters, you've got these different groups. And it's no wonder that a lot of women are afraid to reveal who they are because of the crap that we get.
Just you keep talking.
So if you cannot utter one word of condemnation for one of your party members, then we're in a really, really sad place. And like Choc said, I don't recognise the country. It's not the SNP I joined. It's not the SNP that I campaigned for over the years.
I agree. I didn't campaign for the SNP. I never did. I never campaigned for any political party. I did, however, push the yes message, and I'd always try to support the yes movement and attend rallies and what have you, and marches. Even though I was usually always in disguise, but and again, that was due to my work with the companies that I worked with at the time, and part of it being the civil service latterly, and you couldn't have a go, right, well, because you need to watch what you're doing at certain times. So when it came to the SNP, and I didn't have that I think a lot of people have, and still some people have the new, and hopefully you will agree with this, the SNP tinted glasses. I never had them, right? So I could see early on and go, right, well, I'm not agreeing with that, I don't like that. However, I still like the carrot. Again, the carrot, like a lot of people, the carrot of independence, right? And until it gets to, well, I don't like that, but again, I still like the carrot of independence, and there's nothing else there. There's no alternative, as we've mentioned. There doesn't seem to be an alternative for us. And you go along and you go along to get along type thing, and you kind of go, right, well, I don't like the two things, but I can push it for that, because when we get independence, then we've got the power to change this and that anyway, and that's the mindset, and that wished for Indy, that wished for Indy, that wished for Indy, that wished for Indy, and then it happened again this week in Perth. Like, I'm absolutely raging about that, right? Like, because I'm a yes supporter. So to be called a moron off one of the crackpots, the knee benders that picks up expenses after expenses after expenses and tells us to shut up and no call them scum, right? That one. Then you've got the First Minister, who's saying that we were in the wrong, but these people covered up for Jimmy Savile and the likes of them, you know what I mean? We're in the wrong. This guy was the person that was calling him scum. The reporter scum was he was a minor, so the state got, allegedly, he got a rough time on the picket lines in the 80s, and that's why he was calling, and the way the BBC reported on it was, and that was his reason for calling it scum. So everybody's got their own reasons for these things. So when you've got like the people turning against you and falling in line with Tories, basically, it leaves a very bad taste, and especially some of the other ones that again, the ones that date publicly, you've got targets for, you know, well, they've done it publicly, but see the ones that date privately, that's the kind of they don't want to see it. See that etiquette that you've got, well, I know DMs are DMs, you don't share that shit, but however, you don't do that. Oh, right. So really you're saying this in public, but in private you're saying this, right? So that's hypocrisy, you know. So there's a lot of that I see, and it's coming through. Because the Alba Party came and they were the next big thing, and I'm going, right, well, I want to believe and use, but I'm noticing that what some of them do in public and what some of them say in public in private, it's the opposite again. So you kind of as you say, Choc, you're left there going, I'm politically homeless here. I'm thinking about, well, I wouldn't vote for any of them now, because they're all after their own ends. None of them want to hear my voice. I mean, they want to hear my voice when I'm praising them, but when I'm like saying, well, hold on, the new, you have got a responsibility for this, and this. Oh, hold on, keep that one quiet, the new. Don't we'll like know that responsibility, the new, because we're dealing with this bandwagon, because we're on this one now, right? And still highlight to other ones. Oh, well, look at that bandwagon that they're jumping on. Well, they're doing the very same themselves on a smaller level, you know. So it's that hypocrisy politics, and it should be the people, because I don't want to see Scotland anything like the way Nicola Sturgeon's trying to take it. You know what I mean? I have what I believe my values are the same as the two women that are here on here, the two adult human females, and that, like, well, hold on, you go along to get along, you bend a wee bit, you all right, but still at the same time, we've all worked quite well for 2022 years like this, and before, you know what I mean? So, crackpots, what you try to change it for? Like, don't try to take your crackpotitis out and make us crackpots, because we're not buying that. That's not how you make yours better. Know what I mean? That's how you make us ill, and we're not taking that. Right, but that aside, we're going to line up a wee bit because we're getting a bit heavy here. I'm going to show you a wee bit about Mrs. M. Now, a lot of people that have seen it so far have given accounts of Mrs. M is that she reminds them of a public figure. So I'll show you Mrs. M, listen to what she's saying, and see if you have got any thoughts on who Mrs. M might be based off, right? So, first things first. See that one that you were talking about, Caroline, the Rape Crisis Centre? Was that this dude, this person here with Nicola Sturgeon? Is that one? Aye, Meridian Wadwa, right? Aye. Right, I meant to put that on when you were talking, and we got away from it, so I thought I'm coming back to it. I want to actually come back to it, so it was just so that people know, can put a face to the guy. Right, what we on here? Aye, we're going to show Mrs. M. Mrs. M is one of these people that's a wee bit pissed off and try to do things creatively. So let's have a wee look at Mrs. M. Yeah. Oh, see, this is the pressure of being on a live stream, folks. Ah, I've pressed the right button twice now. Right, take your time, Peter. There we go. That's one. So welcome back to Tweak Street Scotland Occupied, and thanks very much to yourself, Mrs. M, for agreeing to come back. We had to reschedule the last time because you were double booked. So we're coming back. We'll get straight in about it. We're taking we do a quick fire quiz, and I'd like you to take part in that. It's just a choice of two options where you pick your preference. You okay to take part in that, Mrs. M?
Yes, yes.
Oh, excellent. Thanks very much. So we'll start straight away. Videos or books?
Books.
Apple or cherry?
Apple.
Steak or salmon?
Steak.
Hotel or B&B?
Oh, I love a hotel. Hotels.
YouTube or TikTok?
TikTok. You know.
Mrs. M, tumble drying or pegging out?
Oh well, pegging out. I guess my husband loves a bit of pegging. Finds it quite relaxing.
Harry or William?
Oh,
and so TikTok, Mrs. M, you're saying about you've got a TikTok.
I do. It's yes, I do. It's
what do you do that for? I take it.
Well, it's just a bit of fun. Nobody really looks at it. It's just that I need something to relax me, you know, because my job is quite stressful.
It must be really stressful having to deal with all of these meetings, and I see you were with some ambassadors without any flags the other day, and yes. So it must be really stressful having to do that. So I can understand why you were TikTok. Is that pretty much the reason behind it?
Well, no, it's really for all the book reviews that I have to do.
Right, so we'll stop that there. What's your initial thoughts on that then?
She's amazing. I've seen it on. I've seen her TikToks,
right,
and it is just fabulous. But it does remind me of someone, and I can't quite put my finger on who that might be.
I'm the same. It's it definitely rings a bell, and I'm going to say she here. I'm going to say that it's an adult human female, and I don't want to be kind of accused of misgender, and that's just what it looks like to me. Caroline, what's your thoughts? Have you seen Mrs. M? Is that the first time you've seen anything from that?
No, that's the first time I've seen Mrs. M. I'm not on TikTok, so like Choc, she reminds me of somebody, but I just can't quite grasp who it is.
Right. Well, that's hopefully maybe another couple of wee snips later on that might lead us to thinking it's one way or another. Aye, because reminds me somebody today, but like, I just can't quite put my finger on it. Right. So there's a couple of comments coming in from online. I'm going to address some of them and see if there's any that you want to pick up on here. So first of all, I'm going to say hi to everybody that's joining us online. Colin, Frankie, Peter, Heather gave us Shona Robinson's quote, "There is no evidence that predatory and abusive men have ever pretended to be anything else to carry out abusive and predatory behaviour." So thanks very much for that, Heather. That's what we were talking about earlier on. I quote it back to her on Twitter at every opportunity. Right, well, she's just followed on to say that she quotes that back at every opportunity. A great case to use salvo against recognition policy. That's for Peter. Annie Glenn, COVID, what a joke. Assigning a bloke as period dignity officer, like what the hell? Right, well, so we're going to come on and talk about that a wee bit more detail just a wee minute. The guy who became the period officer, ask him if he suffers terribly from hot flushes, because when I heard of this, I had raging flushes. That's Alba Mellon on YouTube. Apparently he's on annual leave on his first week. Must be his bad week then. I promised I was not going to try and get any of the ones. Shit. Sorry, folks, and especially women. I wasn't trying to be demeaning there. See, that's what happens when you've got a guy doing these things, right? Like inconsequential, just I know, and now I can't walk it back, and it's a case of like, right, well, hold on a minute. No, that's the potential of what you've got there in real time, right? And if you've got somebody doing that, and with young lasses and shit like that, there you go. That's a potential issue right away. So
to be fair, we do
I
have.
wouldn't have applied for it anyway.
We're fine. We do have a sense of humour.
Yeah.
Honest.
Aye, I know, but see, there you go, like things like that, because there was something that happened. I hate talking about this because this was down the road. They won the women's Euros, right? And one of the sports commentators made a comment about the woman running about, right? And again, you shouldn't have done it, right? It's one of the things that, right, that's the first thing that people think about. So therefore, it's the first thing that you go, well, no, that's the kind of a thing that we're talking about, mate, right? So get that to. And again, don't have one of the guys, right? We'll talk about that in a wee minute. I fucked that, right?
You obviously haven't read the hashtag. I think it's just ask Jason.
Ask Jason or just ask Jason.
I've seen
some of them. Yes, I have seen some of them.
And the women are hilarious on it.
Aye, and that's the thing. See, like again, without trying to be sexist in any way, I thought it's like, when it's woman when it's coming from a woman, then it makes it that wee bit more acceptable, like a woman or about that issue. But when it's a guy doing it, again, that's no, that's wrong, mate. You should be like, it's a case of these things are sensitive. You don't know anything about them, and you're willing to make a joke about them and make it like into something silly when it's something that women have to deal with all the time and all the consequences that come here. So I shouldn't have a guy. We've got to talk about this in more detail because folk are laughing at me online now. Brilliant. Right. So your initial thoughts when you heard Caroline about the period dignity officer, the male period dignity officer.
I don't think I can repeat them on air, to be honest. I was just
say rage would cover it.
Rage. No, to begin with, I thought it was a joke.
Right.
And then very quickly I realised that it wasn't a joke, and I was just, it just feels like they're trolling us now.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this guy, and I've seen the usual suspects online defending him and bloody well changing his job description, but his job description is to engage with people, engage with girls and women. Now, there might be some young women out there that are okay to sit down and talk to him about periods. Girls, and the vast majority of young women, I don't believe that they are. And this is what really pisses me off. Every other demographic gets to define who they are, what their boundaries are, what's acceptable and what's unacceptable, except for women. We have to shut up and just accept whatever crap they throw at us. A period dignity officer, I mean, it's just ludicrous. I even question, why do we need a period dignity officer? Because it should be, in my experience, talking to girls and indeed boys and young men and young women about periods and the whole reproductive system is usually done through education, or it's a public health issue. So why is this guy, who's also, it would appear, has a very questionable, there's been a very questionable, opaque recruitment process for the post? And are they trying to tell us that that this guy is the best candidate that we have in Scotland to talk to women and girls about their period? Wow. It's not just about period poverty. And I've seen them say, oh, it's a strategic role, it's about procuring and all of that nonsense. No, it isn't. Go read his job description. But the one thing, the highlight of this whole shit show, for the want of a better word, is I cannot wait until he's mansplaining the menopause to a group of Dundonian women. I would pay good money to watch that.
I mean, but you said about the opaque employment history, shall we say. Choc, I'll come to you and I'll come back to you about that, Caroline, because I wanted to ask you something in particular. Choc, what's your thoughts on, your initial thoughts on the appointment of the period dignity officer? And just so you know, I'm going to just display in the background here the Scottish Feminist page and contact details. Should you feel that you can contribute or you can get anything from it, you can see it there. Oil a duck out the road. That's the page there on Twitter, with all the links, etc., which I will share on my page also later on. Sorry, Choc. So to come back to you, what was your initial thoughts on first hearing the shit show?
Period whisperer.
I the period whisperer.
Do you know what? I'm from Dundee. Dundee has a very strong history of strong women who don't take shit. And the thought of this 33-year-old laddie explaining the menopause to these women is hilarious. If it wasn't so sad, it genuinely would be hilarious. But it's just the sheer audacity of thinking, do you know what, it's fine. It's just women and girls. It's all right. We'll get a guy to do it, and it's okay because I've given him the last 2 jobs that he's had, so we'll give him this one as well. It's fine. And do you know what we'll do, just in case, we'll get any women applying? What we'll do is we'll only advertise it for 5 working days, and we'll advertise it in the wrong section, just to be on the safe side.
Brilliant.
And can you imagine if, if somebody had the great idea of setting up an organisation to help women of colour navigate this whole, the whole gynecological thing. And we said, we're going to set up one for women of colour because it is much more difficult because there's language barriers and all the rest of it. And we said, but what we're going to do is we're going to appoint white. There would quite rightly be outrage because that's just not acceptable. But somehow it's acceptable to have a man explain menstruation and menopause to women. And slightly concerningly, a man who thinks that the people who have to put up with the menopause and menstruation can be many, many genders. Slightly concerning me that he doesn't actually know which 51% of the population this might actually affect. I'm hoping given that he's on annual leave just now, maybe when he comes back into work on Monday and he sits down for his first training session, I'm hoping that that might be the first thing that, you know, that's discussed with them. By the way, Jason, it's not actually all genders that this is going to affect. It's actually only one sex, and it's the female sex, irrespective of how they may identify, of what pronouns they use to describe themselves. It's only females that this is going to affect. And how about we just get somebody who is actually a female into these jobs?
Here. Caroline, I said I was going to come back to you to touch on the opaque employment history. However, Choc's kind of gave us a wee bit about it there. Would you care to expand on any of it?
No, I know he had a job doing sort of health and well-being. That was his previous post. I just wonder, what life experience has he got? He sold tobacco products. He then ran a gym, as I understand it, and then he did this health and well-being stuff. What qualifies him to talk to women and girls about deeply personal issues? You know, we talk an awful lot about lived experience. And again, every other demographic, they talk about lived experience and they say, you know, who they want, because they can identify with whoever they are, and rightly so, except women. And I really find it frustrating. And the leader of Dundee City Council, he did himself no favours the other day in the media. You know, he came out with some trite nonsense that we don't have jobs for men and women. Try telling that to the women who fought for years for equal pay. You know, they don't even, you know, with their propaganda, they can't even get that right and use logic and try and spin it in a positive way. It's just insulting. And I think it's indicative of where a significant number of our elected representatives within the SNP are. But there's another issue that I want to raise about this, or another aspect. In Tayside, there's a 20-week wait for women who have received an abnormal cervical smear result. Now, that's 5 months of women worrying and wondering what's going on. And yet we can find £36,000 to pay a guy to mansplain periods and the menopause to us. You know, I do wonder where the thinking is. And I also saw, you know, the usual suspects saying, oh, it's not a Scottish Government appointment, it's the Scottish Government that are funding it. And it just seems that they're just throwing money around the place. Don't get me wrong, period poverty is real. It is an issue. I live in a socially deprived area. We didn't get any gurus and nonsense like that. We made sure that they were accessible. So they were in all of the public buildings, council public buildings. We gave a load to food banks, etc., where people would go so that they could discreetly stock up on the products that they need. So on one hand, we have women sat at home, worried sick about an abnormal result in their cervical smear test, and yet we're chucking 36k at this. And I think they actually thought, oh, look how progressive we are, we're going to make a big announcement about this, and everybody's going to say how wonderful Scotland are. And what they've actually succeeded in doing is subjecting Scotland to absolute ridicule, because this story went global. You know, Israel, an Israel TV channel, Wanted came a couple of days ago. They interviewed a woman from the Scottish Feminist network. I understand the Washington Post covered it, Martina Navratilova, you know, and the world is laughing at the numpties in charge in Scotland, and to be honest, quite rightly too. So yeah, I'm not happy with it. And erasing women's language is just going to isolate and alienate women further, because, you know, those that oppose women's rights like to frame us as middle-aged, miserable old women. But there's an awful lot of young women out there that are really worried about what's going on. But because this whole ideology is, you know, embedded in our culture, they're afraid to speak out because they'll be cancelled. I know of numerous young women that don't speak out, and those that have been totally ostracized. So you can't blame them. It's not that they're colluding with it. It's that they know that if they put their heads above the parapet, and I go back to, you know, J.K. Rowling and Joanna Cherry, when you've got women, public women of a certain status receiving that crap, then it's dead easy. Somebody, just an ordinary woman or young woman, it's dead easy to attack them because they don't have the platform and the profile. So it really is, you know, it's just an absolute shit show. And the other issue that I have with, you know, some of our female parliamentarians, you know, they had the opportunity to climb up that ladder in what was for a long time a male-dominated environment. But what really irritates me is once they got to they achieved their goal, they pulled that ladder up, and then what they started doing was firing down buckets of crap onto the women that they'd left behind. That's how I see it. And finally, I'll shut up after this, but women are predominantly low-wage earners. And that's down to, you know, taking career breaks to have kids, or very often ending up looking after elderly relatives. So there's a lot of women out there that are on minimum wage. This job is above the average national wage, and they give it to a bloody man.
Aye.
What message are they sending to girls and young women in Scotland? You know, when Nicola Sturgeon said our concerns were not valid, I think what she actually meant was women and girls are not valid, because her, as you were talking earlier, her actions thus far tell us that we're not valid, because she doesn't listen to us. She doesn't acknowledge that actually there's a hell of a lot of evidence out there that supports what we are saying and actually does validate our concerns. So yeah, it's just a really sad state of affairs. I think back to 2014 and all that enthusiasm and, you know, real belief that we could do things different, we could do things better. I actually think at the moment, and for the last few years, we've been doing things a hell of a lot worse.
Aye. I'm sitting here in my horn in my chin at the minute because I'm getting further and further down, because I'm like, it's one of the things, and you go, right, well, for looking at these people, the people that say grabbing defeat for the jaws of victory is how I see it from the independence point of view. And then, but when you look at it deeper, and you look at how it's not that they're grabbing defeat, it seems to be that they're ensuring defeat by attacking the biggest demographic in Scotland, and that's adult human females. And when I say attacking, by no supporting and invalidating anything that the concerns that women try and raise, you're not uniting anything. All you're doing is creating division, because, like, I don't know, it's always like, women have always played a big part in my life, so it's one of the ones that you kind of you go, right, well, no, wait a minute, I'm not happy with this. I'm not happy with what's going on here and how it's impacting these people. And it's horrible to say, but there wasn't enough guys coming out and support. There was nobody saying anything, and you go, why? It's like, it's wives, it's daughters, it's sisters, it's your society, and you kind of but wished for Indy. Away you go and run up my hump. Aye, I mean, run up my hump.
It's like these politicians when they're asked what is a woman, and they can't say what a woman is. You know, I'm there and I'm screaming at the telly, it's the person that bloody well birthed you, you tube.
Aye.
You know, it's just, it is incredulous that this is where we're at.
You're much politer than me then, Caroline. If that's what you're saying.
I see that wee red box saying recording, and that reminds me.
I suppose when I'm screaming at the telly, it's not recording, I suppose. So that's what are you going to say there, Choc?
I don't understand. I am not a politician. But I assume that the idea of a politician is that you persuade people to vote for you. That's kind of what you're there for. So see if you've got advisors that are saying to you, to Keir Starmer, to the SNP, listen, you're losing women voters here, and here's why you're losing them. Because women are saying, if you're prepared to lie about what a woman is, what else are you going to lie about? If you're not prepared to protect women, then nah. So when they're being told that they're losing women's votes and men's votes because of this, why are they not saying, even if they don't believe it, why are they not saying, well, do you know what, actually, this is the wrong thing to be doing if we want these votes. If we want these votes, we're actually going to have to protect women, even if we don't want to. Because do we think the Tories are women's, that there are natural defenders? Of course they're not.
No, but again,
somebody in the Tories has said to them, do you know what, see if you want women's votes, you're going to have to actually come out on their side, even if you didn't believe it, but you're going to have to come out on their side. So, and it comes to something when the only party that are going to protect me and my rights are the Tories.
What would happen if there was an underhand plan that had been arranged that meant that all the politicians go a wee share of something by denying the realities or the truths of situations? Nah, that wouldn't happen.
But like the Lib Dems.
That would.
Yeah, I was just going to say, if
that's too far-fetched, that, isn't it?
Pharmaceutical company that makes puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones gave significant sums of money to, what was her name? Over in East Dunbartonshire.
Jo Swinson, was it Jo Swinson?
That's it, yeah.
Right.
Gave a big wedge of wonga to her campaign.
Shit, that wouldn't happen. And you wouldn't have the likes of Russians in that try to influence the politics and the four home nations of Scotland, England, Ireland, and Wales. You wouldn't have that. You wouldn't have them try to be an influence and like gaining like Ruth Davidson like 20 grand and things like that. Like it's all far-fetched. It's all just hearsay, right? Don't believe anything they tell you, right?
But what percent?
I've had my fill, right. I actually want to blow the lid off everything, right? But see, every time I try and do it, Google stop me for uploading it, right? So I'm at that stage now where I'm taking the risk of potentially go to jail, right? And I'm like, it's one of the ones where I'm going, trying to convince my wife, like, no, this is for the greater good. And she's not buying it. To be fair, she's not buying it. And I'm going, no. But this isn't for me. This isn't for you, right? This is for the greater good. This is for women. This is for Wayne's. This is for the benefit of this. And she's like, but how's that going to benefit you? And I'm like, it's not. It's for the greater good. She's not buying it, right? Because people know stuff, right? And people only saying it because of court orders and because of all sorts of things, right? But you also people know things for employment and stuff like that, where you get to see things and you get to know how things operate, and you go, I know what's happening here, and I'm trying to tell you what's happening here. There's a wee bit of a con going on somewhere. However,
there has to be something, though. There has to be a reason why you can persuade senior politicians to say that when people are born, they don't have a sex.
Mm-hmm. Money.
And that some, that men can grow their own cervix. It's like those kits you got at Christmas. It was like, grow your own cactus.
Aye. They need to start growing their own fucking brains, man.
Aye. How on earth do you manage to persuade people who ostensibly are supposed to be the great and good in our society to say these ridiculous things. You have these people saying, yeah, but you see, you can literally change sex, and human beings come in more than two sexes. And you're looking at the telly going, well, how do you persuade? There has to be some reason that these people are persuaded to say these batshit. Because it is
crazy things.
It is batshittery.
Aye.
Of the highest order.
Here you go, right? I'm going to play a wee bit here, right? Now, see if when I was away, right, and I went in and I'd said to my mum and dad, this is what they tell me at school today, that I could be this because I feel like it, and I could be that because I feel like it. Right? And the reason I'm saying this is I've got 3 sisters, so it wasn't uncommon for me to be dressed up in leotards and tutus and be dancing partners for a lot of things, involuntary. You know what I mean? It was like forced upon me. Well, kind of that's all right, actually, give a shot at that. Right? So it was forced upon it. But if I went in and said to my parents, like, hold on, they taught me this in school. Well, hold on. As a matter of fact, let's not go to school, right? But let's make it real. If I went home to my parents and said, by the way, the priest says to me when I was an altar boy, Dad, come here a wee minute, take your robe off. I want to talk to you about some stuff. And I come home and said to you, Dad, what would you do? I wouldn't get to finish that sentence before the police were at the chapel. You know what I mean? Right? Now, when you've got politicians, and somebody's commented on this, Joe Swinson, that we'd spoke about sharing the stage with the likes of what's that wee guy? The wee Patrick Harvey.
The
Harvey.
feral potato.
Feral potato. And John Hine, the now deceased John Hine, who was one of the founders of the Paedophile Information Exchange. Is there any truth in the rumour that the Paedophile Information Exchange is now the time for inclusive education, and that there's just been a slight change? No,
I don't believe that.
You don't believe that?
No, I don't believe that. No, I don't.
Right, cool. That's what again. You hear all sorts of rumours flying about that this has changed to that for that reason, so that they can go under the radar with ex-political parties that they try to approach as pie, and now they've approached as tie. Again, there's loads of rumours, right? So
yeah,
but don't believe everything that you hear online.
No, I think there's a link in as much as the dismantling of society's boundaries and the absolute disregard for safeguarding. This is creating a predator's paradise. Yep. You know, you read it, look at self-ID, and it's a predator's charter. So for example, prisons. We have convicted sex offenders. Now, bearing in mind that 99% of sex offenders are male. We have convicted sex offenders who are saying, I'm a woman, you need to send me to a women's prison. And we're told, oh, but they're risk assessed. But what we're not told is that they have a different risk assessment because they've declared themselves as women. They are risk assessed under a woman's risk assessment rather than a male's risk assessment. So it's a completely different document. They're looking for different indicators, etc., so that they can analyse what risk they're at. So it's a load of bloody nonsense. And when you see that, and you see just the absolute the dogma, it's almost cult-like what kids are being taught in school, that you can change sex, that, you know, if a wee boy picks up a doll, oh, maybe you're trans. And this stuff is happening. I'm not saying it's happening in every school, but it is happening. We know of incidents where teachers that are totally captured by this whole ideology are you know, promoting it to young malleable minds. And you have to start to ask yourself, who benefits from this? And I think what I find really scary and shocking is that despite the evidence that's come out from Sweden, France, Finland, some states in America, and recently Dr. Cass's interim report around the Tavistock and puberty blockers and the damage that they cause, and the fact that there are no long-term studies. And yet here in Scotland, our Scottish government are just ploughing on ahead. So we've got the Tavistock getting shut next year, and Sandyford up in Scotland take their guidance from and their practice from the Tavistock, because they are upheld as, you know, they are the experts in this area. So it's been highlighted and found that they've got dangerous practices and that they're not doing proper follow-up tests, etc., etc. But in Scotland, still referring kids to the Tavistock, to Sandyford, and Sandyford are referring kids to the Tavistock. And our government are wandering about their fingers in their ears going la 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 la. I have never in my lifetime known an issue to be so driven right across the world. And you know, it's not just that, oh well, this is a good idea, Scotland will do it. It's everywhere. It's a global, I would say, a movement, but it's not even a movement. It's indoctrination.
It's an indoctrination. I agree with you, Caroline. And see what you were saying there, right? God, I've lost my train of thought on what it was you were talking about. That you were saying at the time that I was going to come in on. But see with the like, say, the governments across the world to come out against like puberty blockers, as you've said, like in Sweden and France, and then the closure of the Tavistock. But for the Scottish Health Secretary, as you've said, that the Sandyford takes the guidance for the Tavistock. That's the Scottish version of this clinic. For the Health Secretary not to come out and saying, for the First Minister not to come out and say anything about it, and yet they'll comment about somebody shouting and scrum at a Tory and BBC representatives, and like these, for me, it kind of shows how blatant it is. It's a case of we're ignoring the serious things to focus on wee things that are going to drive wedges, you know, and again further divide.
Aye, absolutely. But I'm not surprised that the Health Secretary hasn't said anything. This is the Health Secretary that has a damaged leg and is showing off in the corridors of Holyrood, and the numpty crashes his scooter. I mean, for goodness sake, he was an utter failure as the Justice Secretary. He was an utter failure as the Transport Minister. So, hey, let's give him the NHS to screw over. You know, it's just... Well,
here's poetic justice for you, right? As you said, the Transport Minister, the Health Secretary, and what was the other thing?
He was the
Justice Minister. Yeah. So there you go, a wee bit of justice on the way down, a wee bit of stupid transport with a broken leg, ended up having to go to the hospital again. There you go, that's a wee bit of poetic justice for you. He's a clown. He doesn't deserve to be in the position. He has said that Scotland is too white, too Scottish. Like, come on, mate. Like, I don't get this. And then you've got the First Minister again, who's ignoring it and like commenting on broom cupboard type things rather than serious issues that are affecting Scottish families, Scottish children, and is supposed to be a feminist to her fingertips all into the bargain. There's something no adding up here, right? And I can't quite put my finger on it, but I don't think that the First Minister of Scotland is a truthful person. That's just me. There is something that, for what she says and for what we experience, that don't marry up. And it's not just the First Minister of Scotland, like politicians across the board. That I can kind of make a sweeping statement here. Politicians across the board are these idealists that, yes, this is focus on this. Everything else here is just a ruse. Just focus on this here, right? Just look at the bigger picture, folks. What they're telling you and what they're doing just don't seem to marry up. And who's suffering? They're still getting their expenses. They're all right, Jack. But it's Caroline, it's Choc, it's my niece, it's my granddaughter. I'm not happy. I'm not going to let that happen. But there's a case that you need to stand up for, and these women have been doing it for way before I started speaking up. So show them some support. Get in touch if you need some advice. If you want to join a wee group. I'm going to do another wee screen share with putting your details on. I'll do it on the actual page itself though, the groups page. So
Can I do a wee?
Of course you. Yes, plug away.
15th of September.
Would
love to see you at Holyrood.
Right.
11.
Would that be for something like this?
That's the very one. We would love to see you.
Right.
And if you do want to come and you're slightly concerned because you think you might be on your own, you don't know anyone, get in touch with the Scottish Feminist Network. We will make sure that you're not on your own, that you have a friendly face, that you're not standing about like a little bit of a spare part, not quite sure what to do with yourself. We're there, we'll keep you safe, we'll find you a friendly face, and we would love to see you.
Caroline, you want to add on that before we move on to the final section?
No, absolutely agree with what Choc has said. We want people to come. We will keep you safe. They're very well organised. There will be stewards there. There will be police there. I know it can be quite intimidating when you've got a group of angry people shouting and screaming at you, but there will be enough of us there to make sure that everybody's okay. Because we did last year have someone break into the sort of body of the protest, but we had a couple of women, one in particular, she's not the height of nonsense, but I wouldn't mess with her, and I'm 5'10". So don't worry, we're well able to look after ourselves and look after you. So please, anybody watching this that would like to come along, please do.
Excellent. Right, we'll stop that wee share there. So I'll just echo that end of it. It's what to go along to the Scottish Women's Rally, Women's Rights, Women's Voices, Thursday the 15th of September 2022 at the Scottish Parliament at Edinburgh from 11:15 for an 11:30 start. Speakers to be confirmed, male supporters welcome. It's going to be For Women Scotland, hashtag Women's Rally, www.forwomen.scot. I think I might actually go along that day. Right. So we're going to move on to the final section then. Again, not that it was set for any time, but we'd said there were certain things we're going to talk about. And the final bit is pretty much, and again, it's about double standards, really. It starts off a few years back when the former First Minister was accused of something. Fair dues, the man was tried and found not guilty in a court of law and done whatever. And then there was words of, well, we take the Me Too movement and the sexual abuse and these allegations very seriously and a zero tolerance approach to it, zero tolerance. And then Patrick Grady was found to have been guilty of molesting well, I don't know if it's molestation, again, just my terms for it, touching somebody that he shouldn't have been touching, like it's assault and it's sexual assault, whatever it is, in a minor because they were under 18. I don't know if that's something. And then Jordan Linden, let's put it as it is, because Chris Pincher was promoted from one position to another position by the current Prime Minister of England, Wales, North Ireland, Scotland, right? I don't like saying that thing. He promoted that person and there was an outcry, rightfully so, there was an outcry. How can you promote that person knowing this and knowing that and knowing the next thing? And some of it was for Ian Blackford and some of it was for the SNP, right? Then, lo and behold, Patrick Grady was found guilty. Oh, no, there's rehabilitation. We want to, there's degrees of abuse. and not all abuses are the same, allegedly. So we'll rehabilitate this one. And then Jordan London, who I believe is the nephew of that David London that they have to call the Scottish independent supporters morons. His nephew was about touching up Wayne's and that, and try to arrange double hotel rooms for events with double beds. Again, these are all allegations. These are all like allegations online that still to be determined. And then he get promoted, and then he became councillor in North Lanarkshire, the leader of the North Lanarkshire Council, I believe, before he had to step down after allegations of historical sexual abuse and scandal resurfaced. The investigations that were allegedly done were botched. They weren't reported to the police. And again, a cover-up seemed to have ensued. What's your understanding of it? Caroline, I'll come to you first on it.
I just think that the sleaze that's coming out from the SNP is just shocking, and their double standards and their hypocrisy knows no bounds. What really shocked me with Patrick Grady and Jordan London, and let's not forget Derek Mackay either, because he was grooming a 16-year-old boy. And I know that the age of majority in Scotland is 16, but in the rest of the UK, it is 18, and there is a real power imbalance there. And these people are not, it's not a one-off. These people have a reputation within the party for being sex pests. You know, Jordan London, there's multiple allegations now against him. And what's disgraceful about that is these are minors. So they're under 16 children, age under 16. And parents are supporting and encouraging them to participate in democracy. And so they're trusting the adults to look after them. Jordan London was reported for sending explicit materials to a 14-year-old and others, because others have come forward since. And what I find just incredulous is that Ben McKendrick, the chief executive of the Scottish Youth Parliament, rather than contacting the police, he employed a legal team and then said that we've investigated and it's false allegations. And it was sweep under the carpet.
He's in cover up. I'm sorry, Caroline.
But he's also a non-executive director of the Scottish government. So I can understand why people start to explore these and where rumours come from, because the connections are quite frightening. And this guy, as far as I'm concerned, he not only let down the parents of these young people that were put in his care, but he let them down. He especially let them down. And the Patrick Grady incident, this happened a number of years ago. And the young man that made the complaints, he was called to Blackford's office. Now, he didn't know what he was going in for. And he walked into an ambush. There was Grady and Blackford. And he walked into that. Now, I can only imagine, the shock and the anxiety that walking in to see your abuser and how that may have triggered him. But the hypocrisy is staggering, because there was Tories a few years ago. There was a Tory MP that had behaved sexually inappropriately. And they had tried to organise a meeting with the woman and the MP in a hotel room. And everybody was up in arms about it. And especially the SNP were particularly vocal about how this is awful and blah, 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 blah. And it was awful. But the Tories at least had the decency to forewarn her. They asked her, would she come to a meeting to try to resolve this issue? That young man that Patrick Grady harassed, he wasn't given that choice. No. And from what I can gather, he's been ostracised ever since.
Yeah.
And this has been going on for years. So there's zero tolerance. They can shove it where the sun doesn't shine, because it's just more sound bites. It's empty rhetoric. And I am very much someone who believes, as you'd said earlier, about, actions speak louder than words, deeds, not words. If you are really serious, Nicola Sturgeon, about stamping this out within your party and take action, because as far as I'm aware, I could be wrong, but as far as I'm aware, Patrick Brady and Jordan Linden are still members of the party.
Aye. Choc, what's your thoughts on it? I know that you're no involved with politics anymore, but have you got any thoughts on it? Did you know about it and etc.?
To be fair, I wish that I had been more shocked about it. I really wish that I'd said, "Oh my God, these people who work for a woman who is a feminist to her fingertips has this has happened under her watch. This is terrible." I wasn't surprised. I genuinely wasn't surprised that, because any party who treats women as mere inconveniences,
it
surprised me that they would allow this to happen. No.
It's one of the things where you go, like, see, on hearing you saying that, like, I wish it shocked me. That's sobering, and you go, like, hold on, like, other people saying, like, with women saying that, hold on, with these issues that I wish that shocked me, and it doesn't. That's sobering to the point of going, hold on, this is where it's wrong then, that people should be shocked by these issues. These allegations should rock people to rock politics to its core, and now it's expected. Now it's the norm, and that's what they're doing. They're normalising these things, and look, with the normalisation and no debate that women have went through over the full trans issue, it's a case of it's attacking all the tenets that we know in society and destabilising them to replace them with new ones, new norms. And like, have we got to allow that? Is that like, I know that I'm not for allowing it, right? And I know that with the groups that you're involved in, you're not for allowing it. That's a rhetorical question. We've got to allow it. Like, this is to everybody. And we actually got to sit back and allow this to happen to us.
But the problem is, we not that we are allowing it to happen, but it is being allowed to happen.
Yeah.
That's an issue. It's an issue when you have people that are accused of these kind of issues, that they are still members of the party. They still work as councillors. That's a problem.
Yeah.
And it doesn't take a lot to hang your colours on the mast and say, we will not allow this to happen in our party, in our country, because it is wrong. There is no excuse that we can make for this. We're going to tell you now it's absolutely wrong, and we're not standing for it. And when our government don't do that, then what does it say about the contempt that they hold us in?
Aye, and look, I'm fed up saying this. Actually, I'm fed up saying that we've got more power than we realise. And when I say we, the collective, every wee guy, and I use the term guy figuratively, right? Every wee individual, whether it be man, woman, every wee single human being, if you stand up and go no at the one time, see all the ones that think they've got the power already, they go, oh shit, well, wait a minute, they've all done it, right, let's change that, let's change that, right, because that's what happens, because they rely on your silence, they rely on your ignorance, they rely on working in the dark to make sure that they're getting an advantage, to the detriment usually me, you, and all the wee individuals, all the wee ones that kind of don't come out your lane, stay in your lane, just you stay in your lane, because when you're staying in your lane, they're happy at that, right? When you come out, when you start thinking for yourself, when you start going, well, wait a minute, and you start joining the dots, and you start going, that's a duck over there. How do you know it's a duck? Because it's walking, talking, and quacking like a duck. It's a fucking duck, right? We know it's a duck, right? They'll tell you it's not a duck. They will say it's not a duck. They will tell you it's a goose. They will tell you it's the golden goose, right? That's what. No, look, right? Because that's their job. Their job is to make sure that their golden goose maintains golden. When actually, all they're doing is fucking ducking these right, left, and centre.
Mhm.
So stand up and say enough. Right. Anyway,
But that's an age-old tactic, isn't it? You know, divide people, because the people together, united, have got tremendous power. And I think what some of the nonsense that we've seen over the years within the Yes movement itself, you know, you've got politicians, some of them absolutely obnoxious individuals, referring to people as trash. And you know, having a go at people because they're expressing themselves as they express themselves, you know, and it's well known working class people don't beat about the bush, but they've become a problem now because the SNP have become neoliberal and they've moved to the right.
Yep.
And so now those people that fundraised for them, that campaigned for them, that got them elected, they're now like, oh no, we need to marginalize them because we can't be associated with them.
Mm-hmm.
They've become, it's a class issue. And I know we don't like to talk about class these days because we might actually have to bloody well do something about the disparity between what working class people are expected of them and middle class. But the party has become very middle class, in my opinion. And I'm the daughter of a miner, but I've come through life and I have a comfortable life. So I'm told regularly I am middle class, and that may be so in today's interpretation, but I've not forgotten where I came from, and I've not forgotten what that was like. And I've not forgotten what many other people out there are suffering.
Well, that's quite profound, actually, because but it's one of the things, you know what I mean? Like, as you say, Caroline, you can work your way out of a situation. You can work your way out of a scheme. You can work your way out of what people deem to be a lower class into a higher class, right? And you can do it in several different ways. But I don't know, there's something about that working class mentality, that scheme mentality, where I grew up when it was one of the ones that I never ever forgot where I came from. And like, I whistleblower against a multinational because it was going to increase, like, have an impact directly on my family, even though I was employed with them. But I don't know, this is like impacting. What you're asking me today is, let's say I agree with this, right, on a business sense, knowing fine well that it's going to impact my family and families like my family, right, and people like my family, knowing the profits that you're going to make off it. So I've got a choice here. I'm choosing to offer that one, right? Was how it started, right? That was the wee tiny grain of sandy, how it started. I've got a choice in this one. I'm saying no here. And then it seemed to kind of start growing, and you kind of you go, well, wait a minute, no, but that's not right. Now it's not only my family, now it's the people that I'm managing in the company that's affected with this. So it starts with somebody, and then it moves to somebody else, and then it moves to somebody, and I'm like, well, hold on a minute, right? So if it's work for the customer, it's work for them, it's work for the engineers, it's work for them. Now it's into the office, and it's working through, and it's like you can see it spreading. So I just decided, well, I'll just do what you do. Friday afternoon, let's see that usual, when the managers are usually walking out the door and they send something like bad news to all the rest of the staff. I mean, they're finishing for the weekend, right? So I just decided to do a wee bit of guerrilla management myself, and I've done the opposite. So I'm like, all right, I've followed all the channels, I've been to the union, I've done everything that I've needed to do, and I'm not getting anywhere. Bearing in mind I'd suffered a couple of heart attacks and a stroke into the bargain as a result. Well, I'm the same as a result. That's my own diagnosis, right? But when you look at all the things and all the illnesses that came to other people, it was one of the things. So on the way out the door on the Friday afternoon, I just decided, well, here you go, I'll send that laptop half away home. Tell you, my phone's never rang as much as in its life. The amount of messages I got that night. Are you all right? Is everything all right? What's happening here? For people that I'd never heard from, you know what I mean? I did a reply to group, the group all thing on it. But see that way I thought, well, no, I'm not having it the chance that it's no getting to people. Everybody's getting to know about this. Send. But they changed everything. They made all the necessary amendments that were suggested in the email. But I was the first one to get made redundant. You know what I mean? It's like how it goes.
Aye. Oh, aye. The minute I took on the convenership of the SNP Women's Pledge, that was my cards were marked. That was, you know, the end of me progressing within the party.
Aye. That's it, Caroline. It's that you go, I can't tolerate that this much that I'm going to put my target on my. I'm putting my target on my back here.
Aye.
And you know that yourself, and with hindsight is an absolutely wonderful thing, right? I wouldn't have changed anything what I'd done, right? See, when they sent me all the psychologists and stuff like that because they thought I was mental, and they're asking me, "What did you do that?" Like what? Like that went to like a group consists of potentially 50,000 receivers, right? Throughout the company, across the spectrum of the multinational company. Woof, group, every single group. Here you go. You should know this. Canada, the States, everywhere. And folk were like, "Oh no, you need to go and see somebody. There's something not right with you. Like, why did you stop?" And I'm like, "What is it that's not right with me here? Like, I don't agree with this, and I don't agree with it that much." And here you go. I was employed at all these different junctures throughout the company. And here's all the evidence of why I don't agree with it and how it's impacted the staff, how it impacts the customers, the financial impact. Oh, you've actually, and I says, I'll tell you something else. I says, see the people that I used to work with that trained me on how to do this stuff. They all know about this and all. So that tells me that they've been covering it up for 2 years. I says, so see when that gets to the press, I says, and see the amount of backtracking that was done and backroom meetings. Oh, can we talk to you about this and can we talk to you about that? And you know yourself, you can never go, I know this, I know the severity of this, but still at the same time, I can't sit back and let people bully people to that extent that, well, no, you've got a choice, but you've not really got a choice because we'll do this if you, and that's what happens. And you've suffered, and other people have been the same. Like,
well, absolutely. You know, you look at Joanna Cherry. You know that woman has ovaries of steel. Joan McAlpin's another one. Lynn Anderson, the Equalities convener. You know, there's just a whole litany of people that have just been discarded. Women that have just been discarded because they've said, "Wait a minute. If you do this, this will be the impact on women and girls." And that's all it took. That's all it took for people to be monstered and demonized.
Aye, it's wrong, and like we need to stand up. Right, we're running way on. So Choc, I'm going to say to you first. Have you got a wee message you want to put out to everybody? Because we're just about finishing up.
I would just like to remind everyone that there are two sexes. Those sexes are binary and immutable, and women don't have penises.
Thank you very much. Caroline?
I would just like to add, on behalf of my lesbian friends, that lesbians don't like penis. So please leave them alone.
And on that note, I agree with what basically the women have said there, basically the adult human females. I'm an adult human male, right? I know what a woman is. I know what a man is. I know what a lesbian is. I know what a penis is. And a woman doesn't have a penis, right? That aside, you can't change your sex. You can try and pretend that you want to live as something else, but you're just pretending, right? But the other people don't need to pretend along with you. And you can't change your sex, right? I want to put another wee message, and this is off topic, but just to somebody in particular who sent me a wee message today and lifted me up a wee bit, because I've been a wee bit down because I've had a couple of bits of bad news with family, no with family, with friends of family and things like that, extended like acquaintances and things like that passing away, and some other things. And it was a wee single woman who, and we single women don't get recognised enough. I mean, you get families and you get like, let's talk about families and let's talk about kids and things like that. But there are people that go through life that are on their own, and they don't get enough consideration. So I just want to give a special shout out to this wee single woman, because she sent me a message the day that poor lifted me like a kite, absolutely lifted me like a kite. Because it's at times when you've been through tough times that the people that come and send you nice wee messages or come and visit you, they're the ones that you go, I'm glad I know you, like for that. So thanks very much to you. You know who you are. Right, on that note, to all the women in my life, to all the women in my podcast, to all the women in Scotland, don't give an inch, and folk like me will make sure that we're standing beside you so that inch isn't given anywhere. All right. For Tweet Street Scotland Occupied, for the Scottish Feminists, for Caroline, for Choc, for Cinnamon Bridges, for the Satirical Saltire, it's good night. We're ending the live stream now. Thanks everybody for joining us online, and we'll catch you soon.